Good morning and welcome to the Administration and Operations Committee of May the 21st. Can't believe it's May 21st already. Attendance has been taken. Everybody's here. Not sure about Councillor Garneau. We believe she is coming, but we'll play that one by ear. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Seeing none. As far as the agenda goes, 4.1 for the Brant County Healthcare, we're looking for a motion for them to extend past the 10 minutes. But before I do that, I was told it would not be Paul that would be extending, so we probably could. All in favor of that? Councillor Howes, Councillor Oakley. That's good to go. And 4.2 has withdrawn today. They're going to come directly to council, so 4.2 has withdrawn. Other than that, so motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Kyle, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, any at this point? Okay, if some arise through the meeting, please just let me know. Delegations, Brant County Healthcare. I'm not sure who's all going to come up. Okay, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, everybody. My name is Paul Emerson. You know me. I'm past chair of the hospital board and not currently the chair of the building committee or redevelopment committee. But the main reason I'm here is to introduce Bonnie Cam. Bonnie's our CEO. Some of you have met her, some that went on the tour. And Bonnie was here, I think, for the paramedic ambulance stuff. But anyway, we're very fortunate in this community to have Bonnie. She has a wealth of experience with a number of hospitals. Most recently, she was the vice president of looking after a lot of stuff, including all the clinical at Grand River Hospital up in Kitchener. So big job, and we've got her here, so we're very fortunate. So Bonnie's going to take over and talk about where we're at on the redevelopment. We also have, I think he just stepped out for a minute, but Don Hall, who's the director of redevelopment. Where is Don? Oh, you're over there. Okay. Tony with you there? Yeah, hi, Tony. We have Kerry Wilson, who is the head of our foundation, executive director, and Alana Lukic, who's a vice president at the hospital and in charge of a bunch of stuff. So, turn it over to Bonnie.
All righty. Well, thank you, Paul, and Chair, Mayor, and committee members. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of an update shortly, but certainly want to start off by acknowledging the opportunity provided today for us to come and chat with you about where we're at with our redevelopment initiative across the county and city. And there has been much work, and I know this isn't the first time it's come here, so hopefully this will provide the most recent information as to where we are. As you know, our vision at the hospital is exceptional care, exceptional people. And despite tremendous growth in this community, along with our known infrastructure challenges, we have achieved exemplary standing with Accreditation Canada, the highest standard there is with them, just recently in November of 2023, which really demonstrates the commitment of this community and our people to ensure we're providing quality care. And we do look forward to continuing to partner on a go forward as we talk about where we are with our process and the role that the county will play. So as you see, we're going to walk through serving our community, what we submitted back in October of 2023 to give you some perspective as we're seeking approval on that stage with the ministry, and then our project schedule and next steps. And what we really hope, sorry about that, to get out of today is to essentially talk about what we have submitted to date, what we have heard from the Ministry of Infrastructure Ontario, and what that means to our plans, and then the role that we're hoping the county will play on a go forward. So a lot of these stats you already know. We have 330 acute beds, along with about 50,000 visits to our Merge and 30,000 at the Willett for our urgent care. That actually quantifies us to be considered as a large community hospital, just for awareness. So I think that's an important delineation as we go forward. And sorry, we're getting some beeping there on the screen. So just again, from a planning and community growth perspective, we do serve in this region and as a hospital the largest or the most populous First Nations territory in the country. And so that's an important delineation for this region. Our 20-year growth rate, according to the Minister of Finance summer 2023 release, is 36.8% over the next 20 years, which is substantial. We've already crested 10% growth since 2022, which was not actually the forecast, and our hospital has exceeded the capacity on all fronts within our building. And I should highlight our occupancy actually overall in the hospital has run at about 125% through the winter, which exceeds any other region across the province and is only eclipsed by West Haldimand at 127, but their beds are quite a bit smaller, so it doesn't take much to get to 127. So where are we? Well, the overall project schedule you see here, and this is highly complex, and so I don't expect you'll memorize this, but we are at what's called the 1.2 stage, so we're in an early planning proposal stage. It has two components to this stage, which I'll speak to briefly, and we did submit this back in October of 2023, and how it works is we seek to get approval on this stage, which we've yet to actually receive. And so, as you can see there, we have received some feedback and correspondence, and we've had some meetings, etc., with the Ministry and Infrastructure Ontario, which I will speak to shortly, and then the intent, and Ontario Health West, which is important. And so now we're working on our agreement of the facility development plan. The 1.2 proposal stage includes two parts, the programs and services, which is the part A, and the part B, again, being the facility development plan, which includes 3 options for the Brantford General Hospital site and 2 for the Willett Hospital site. Both are still pending that approval. And, you know, just to address the concept of a greenfield site, we have, at this point, we have not received agreed upon parameters from the Ministry of Health to proceed with a greenfield site historically. So this process started back actually in 2010 with the master planning process, and there were at least 3, and Don would have better insight than I would, at least 3 greenfield proposals that were not supported by the Ministry of Health. And when we received our planning grant from March of 2022, that included parameters to consider reuse of the existing site. So at this time, this is not an avenue we are proceeding with the ministry, meaning the full greenfield site. For the Willett site, it's yet to be determined whether it will be a new site or a redeveloped site. And a key point here is final resolution of the programming and planning occurs at the end of 1.3, stage 1.3, which is a more detailed planning, and will resolve the final site plans. We can begin the stage 1.3 in parallel while waiting for approval. So it is not something we require 1.2 approved to proceed necessarily, but we do require approval of 1.2. So what we submitted back in October, you know, again, was one large single development, about 1.4 million square feet facility, and it had multiple advanced and post-construction packages, which included primarily parking, supports essentially the most, I'd say, efficient functionality for the redevelopment in order to continue to operate in co-located, and it avoids delays for multiple approvals, because this is the idea of having the whole project approved and then being able to move forward with the various projects phases accordingly. And again, that large procurement package, despite the multiple procurement, allows that to be, I think from a process perspective, far more efficient. So you can see the site plan here. Again, this is what it was proposed. If you look to the left, which is the essentially the Google Earth shot, that is the parking currently, and that is where the proposed building would be in purple. And then you can see where the building is today. There would be parking and ancillary facilities. We would be looking at the disposition of the D tower there in terms of potential for future use. Oops. And for the Willett site, it'd be approximately 80,000 square feet. And as mentioned, we've yet to determine whether that, or with the ministry, whether that would be a secondary new or rebuild at that site. However, it will continue to focus on urgent care and ambulatory as per its existing function. So what we've heard post all of our review meetings, and we more recently, I know we postponed this meeting to now because we wanted the opportunity to circle back with both Infrastructure Ontario as well as the Ministry of Health Capital Branch. So Infrastructure Ontario does determine essentially the construction parameters and construction works with the service providers, the RFP process, as part of the standardized approach to the construction for hospitals across Ontario. We met with IO on April the 22nd and the Ministry of Health on April the 29th to talk about how we could move this proposal forward. And we have also received feedback from the ministry and Ontario Health West, which has been incorporated into our planning. So what did we hear? Well, we heard that the proposal we submitted back in October as one large package actually may not lend itself well to the current marketplace. There's, as many of you are aware, there's a number of hospital redevelopment initiatives that have been approved across the province, and the capacity within the construction industry is a challenge in terms of the number of contractors that can actually support, companies that can support a large-scale hospital build. And the availability of contractors able to support those construction companies to build, and shortages in the labor market, materials, and some challenges with supply chain to get an initiative off the ground timely. So that is something that we are taking away and working to try to address. Hang on. There we go. So in terms of our next steps in reviewing the options, we are now going back and addressing an alternative facilities development plan that reflects this feedback. We have been in discussions with the Capital Branch very robustly, thanks to Dawn, around how we're going to move this forward and coming up with what we'll call an alternative facilities plan to address some of these concerns. And that is essentially to have a variety of construction packages that lend themselves to a more competitive procurement structure, to initiate works earlier to address our growing population and the ongoing space constraint challenges we have, and that addresses what the Ministry and Infrastructure Ontario shared with us at our meetings. We also are working on our communications plan so that we can move forward and we're aligned across the board, our hospital and our community, which is really key in terms of our next steps and moving that ahead. And then continuing with our government relations and advocacy. And I can't stress enough that there are a number of initiatives and hospital projects in that pipeline, and those that have alignment tend to be looked upon more favorably as a go forward. So that is an important component for sure. So our goal is to actually ensure that this alternative facilities development plan gets completed, working collaboratively with the Ministry of Health Capital Branch, and is in their, hands by August the 1st, so that in turn the work gets done and it gets approved for the 2025 budget. And that is the timing we've been told, and we will continue to work effectively to do that. As part of that, we are requesting a letter of support for the concept that a redevelopment of our hospitals in our community is needed. And that's what we're looking for our August 1st submission. as we, again, can't stress enough how important it is that having that alignment across community will ensure the project moves forward timely from our perspective. So I'd be very happy to turn it over to questions from the committee, Mr. Chair, and I'll ask Don Hall to please join me as he's our Director of Facilities, Infrastructure and Redevelopment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Bonnie. Lots of moving parts there. Questions? Councillor House?
Thank you for coming in, through the chair. Thank you for coming in. We always appreciate hearing an update. As you said in your presentation, this is highly complex, and I'm trying to boil it down a little bit for the people who ask us. Mm-hmm. And realistically, what we know right now is we need a new hospital for this growing region, but today we don't know what that hospital is going to look like. We don't know exactly where it's going to be necessarily, and it's too soon to know how much it's going to cost. Largely because of the impact of the construction industry and the challenges that come with there not being enough big companies that could build something like this. But is that a fair summary? And that's mostly looking at the BGH, not so much the Willet. The Willet may or may not be in its location. It might be a greenfield site, but focusing on the BGH right now, is that a fair summary?
Right. So in terms of the BGH right now, our understanding based on our conversations and engagement with the Ministry of Health Capital Branch is that, as I mentioned, a greenfield site is not going to be supported. So this will actually be a site that we've mentioned would be in our parking space currently, so it would be on our physical site at Brampton General right now is the plan, and that's the plan we're working with the Ministry of Health on, because that's what we've been indicated based on our planning grant and the conversations they will move forward on. From a sizing perspective, we still believe it'll be about in that 1.4, give or take a little bit, square footage. The exact configuration is what we are now building as part of that alternative facilities plan that we will take to them as a finalized product by August the 1st to the Ministry of Health Capital Branch, that we are seeking to be approved and therefore included as a project acknowledged by the ministry with the Premier's office by April of 2025 for the 2025 budget. That is our plan, that is our intent. In order to move this forward. I don't know, Don, if there's anything you want.
Yeah, I'll try to not use the mic. I've never been accused of not being heard. So yeah.
Actually, if you would please use the mic so that people who are watching on video won't be able to hear you even if you're loud in the room.
Fair enough. So just to align my comments with Bonnie's, I think the organization is going to be in a lot better position early fall, October, November, to be able to be clear on all of the questions that you ask. You know, what does it look like? How much does it cost? What is our share going to be? And those types of things. We just are not in a position right now to provide that information because we actually don't know ourselves. So we have to bring this forward. So we're on a very quick timeline to bring these alternative facility development plans forward to the ministry by August 1st. We'll probably spend the rest of the summer working with them back and forth, answering questions, and then they will be in a position by early November to actually make their recommendation and bring it forward. And I think that would be a great time where we would come back and certainly be able to provide a lot more clarity around what it is we're doing.
Go ahead, yeah.
Quick follow-up. Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, and if we really do appreciate that. Give it to us straight. And that's exactly what you're doing. So we'll know more before the end of the year. The alternative facility development plan, which I kind of understand, but that suggests that what people are envisioning for the new BGH, it's too soon to know whether it's going to be anything like what they've seen in the newspaper based on early concept renderings and stuff like that. It's basically kind of put that out of your mind and look at a fresh start with this alternative facility development plan, and we're coming soon, we'll have a better idea of what it might look like. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that is fair, that it'll be, as Don mentioned, November likely timeline where we'll be able to come back and give you that indication.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to our presenters. I have a real problem with the concept that you're proposing to build in a brownfield environment. I think almost everybody here has been to the current hospital, and I think one of the driving forces, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the province thinks that they can utilise some of what's already there. By your own admission, you're over capacity. By our own observation, what is there is challenged. Some of it's very old. It doesn't seem to me like it's an obvious addition to what you could build new. Every project I've ever worked on when I was in industry that failed badly failed because the concept was wrong. And I think you have not given me, anyway, a good reason why you would not build a greenfield project here. I understand you've been told that's not on the card, so it's just a constraint you have to live with. But I think, for goodness sake, let's push back now while we have the chance. And if you get forced into a corner that you have to build there, so be it. And I think if that's the case, then the direction you're taking with your alternative of packaging up smaller elements of the project makes sense. But fundamentally, I think you've got the wrong project. And I think fundamentally, there's a much better opportunity to build a greenfield hospital somewhere along the 403 corridor. And there's land available all over the place. Maybe we'll have to buy it, but it's available. So when it comes to asking for our approval, I personally couldn't give it. I think you're doing the wrong thing. So I'm going to stop on that point. Just could we see this facility development plan? Is it a confidential document?
At this point, we're still working on them with our consultant team. But John, maybe just to provide some comfort in what we're doing, our current plans now are all new at the BGH site. This is a new building that we're talking about. It's on the north side of Terrace Hill. And so a lot of folks are concerned that it is a brownfield, but not unlike what you would see in Toronto, where in a larger urban area where they have to redevelop on the roadside. Couldn't agree with you more. After 35 years of this, greenfield is always the way. Unfortunately, it isn't aligning with the capacity availabilities within our province to build those, and so this is our current direction. But it is a new facility and not a reuse of our existing that we're proposing.
Just if I may, one final comment. Go ahead. You're working now on the emergency department upgrade. I suffer from the traffic challenges that brings, and I think if you then try to build a complete new hospital on the existing parking space, I cannot conceive of how that can go well. It's going to be a nightmare of logistical challenges. And even when you've built it there, I think you're building it in the wrong place. You're building it in the center of a town that has got challenges already with its transportation infrastructure, and you're just adding to that problem. So I'm going to say no more. I do recognize we do need a bigger, better, newer hospital. On that point, no disagreement, but your concept is wrong.
May I address that?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? So, as I mentioned, this has been denied 3 times already, a greenfield site at least, right, since 2010. We have done some work, though, to review the current site and to highlight the inability to move forward on certain aspects of the site being redeveloped. That has been, understood. I think the other piece to really highlight is, as indicated in the slides, is that once the functional planning stage 1.3 is completed, that's really when your final site determination is completed.
Any other questions? Councillor Chambers and Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, this may be a political question, but you're used to dealing with the ministry, and you can perhaps comment on this from a political perspective. There's hospitals being developed all around us, and the provinces only have so much money to go around, and they deal out the cards accordingly. There is a school of thought that says if we continue to push back in terms of location, or perhaps in terms of we might not be able to afford this, those kind of pushbacks to the ministry, is there a danger, in your opinion, of the ministry saying, okay, if you're going to keep pushing back and pushing back and pushing back, you're at the bottom of the list, we'll put our resources elsewhere? Is there a danger of that? Because we've been told that there might be.
Well, from my perspective, absolutely, yes. So you can see this process started in 2010. We still don't have a hospital here. We still don't have an approved plan here. So that is unusual. And I would say that if we continue to advocate at this point for a greenfield site today, we will not be in the 2025 budget. That will not occur. And then you're looking to 2026 or potentially beyond. So it does delay this process. And at this point, the goal is to get into the budget, because once you are in the budget provincially, you are acknowledged as a project that will move forward.
Councillor Chambers.
And just to follow up, you've addressed the greenfield pushback. I'm wondering if you can address we might not be able to fund this pushback. What effect does that have? And it may be a reality, and at some point we may have to do that. What would be the appropriate point to do that?
Do you want to speak to that? All right, I will speak to the local share is a challenge for many communities, as you can appreciate. These projects are becoming billions of dollars, and you know, the amounts are substantial for communities, foundations, cities to find. I do know, at least it's my understanding, that there is a review forthcoming around local share and how they're going to be approaching that in future. I don't know the timelines on that or what that looks like, but that is my understanding, because we're not the only community that's facing this, obviously.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll conclude by saying, if you do have information that's forthcoming on that, we certainly would appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share. I don't have anything concrete at this time.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to President Cam, and I'll reiterate what Councillor House said. We're grateful for you to come. We understand you're busy, so don't take my question the wrong way. But when you say you look to partner with the county, what does that partnership look like to you?
Well, I think we're looking to work alongside the county to have support to enable the hospital initiatives to move forward, both at the Willett and at BGH.
Okay. From my perspective, I feel like you look at us like a source of funding, and there's no real partnership. Like I don't see that. I see it coming one way. There was a time a few years ago, it was suggested maybe somebody from the county council, Brantford City Council, could be on the hospital board. That was turned down, which is fine. But there's not really much of an opportunity for us to give input, I guess, unless you guys come here once every so often, frequently. So to me, a partnership is it's kind of two-way. And when Paul was introduced, I guess he's the chair of the redevelopment committee. And has there been any thought to having somebody from the county and from the city at least sit on the redevelopment committee so they can give input, so they can bring back feedback? And like, to me, I think that'd be a good idea, because then it does give you that two-way flow at the same time. And I would ask you, to look around this horseshoe, and I would say, who's your champion at this table?
Well, first of all, if I could just speak to your first part, is we are looking to struck a committee, subcommittee that would work on the advocacy and the approach to support. That would include someone from the county for sure, as well as the city and other leaders across the region. And so that's something we need to do, not just for engaging and support, but also working, this is very much a technical process, but it is also an advocacy process. And so how do we bring all of that together to demonstrate to the province that this community is really committed to bringing forward the hospital infrastructure and care that this community needs? So that would be how I would respond to that. Did you want to? Sure.
And Councillor Miller, did I get it right? The other large piece of this project that is required from the government is community engagement. We have not actually, we've done some of that, and there was some of that done at a very high level. Part of our stage 1.3 works that we're trying to, first of all, get agreement on the stage 1.2 and this alternative facility development plan would be to go out and actually engage the entire community in the development of the project and really getting a sense. That stage 1.3 is called our functional programming, and that's where the detail of the project actually starts to manifest. So we look to develop a project vision with you. We look to develop project programming parameters and planning parameters as to what these new facilities will look like. So Tony and I have been working on that. We're ready to engage in that. We haven't got the money to do that, so we're also waiting for that. But that will be a very fulsome process where both the county and the municipality and the community at large will be involved in.
Okay, just to follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
You mentioned the technical part. I'm not looking to any one of us to come and help with the technical point. I got that, but I think you talk about community engagement and various advocacy. I think we could, as a partner, really help you there. And I think if you're not, I would just say I don't think you're using this to the best of your ability. And I'll leave it at that. So thank you for coming.
Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Bonnie and to Don. So thank you very much for coming and providing information. And I can 100%, as someone who works with government projects and that system, can appreciate the having your idea that you would like to have and having to go back to the drawing board multiple times and try and find that language and that rationale that works with the government of the day. So I can certainly appreciate that. While maybe it's not ideal. So I guess my question is, in terms of parsing it down into smaller packages, construction packages, does that then open the opportunity for more contractors to be able to bid on that? Because I know you mentioned that there's the 2 or 3 that would only be able to accommodate such a big build all in one shot. But parsing it out, does that make there more options and in turn hopefully faster?
Yeah, that's quite intuitive, Councillor Kyle. Yes, that is the intent. And that is what we're hearing. Is that they're based on different size of projects. There may be different construction vendors that are able to accommodate that work. Yeah.
Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair, you mentioned the stab at this is to try to get in the 2025 budget. Would that put us in this construction and occupancy in 4 to 5 years? So in 2030 is what we're looking at in terms of if we get the 2025 budget, if we go to 2026, then we're pushed off. Because at this table, we've heard 10 years, we've heard 5 to 7 years, we've heard lots of different numbers in terms of timeline, and everyone, I think, acknowledges that this was needed 10 years ago. But, are we looking at 2030 then if we're on the 2025 budget?
I couldn't tell you today that yes, it's 2030. When we make our submission in August, we will also be providing them a schedule of what we believe it would take us to get through the next stage, which is the 1.3 functional programming. Then we got to go through the detailed design, issue the RFP, and then award the contract and actually start construction. We will work with Infrastructure Ontario to determine what that looks like. I think 5 years from the point of being approved in the budget is probably pretty optimistic. one of the reasons that we're looking at packaging the overall project is to then allow Infrastructure Ontario to drop those packages within its overall $50 billion cash flow across the province. Maybe in the fall we'll have a better sense of that. It probably is going to take a little bit longer. I mean, we're still talking, you know, anywhere 5 to 6 to 7 years to get the construction, 10 to 12 years to be in the new building. That's all we can tell you at this point. It'll really be dependent on what's finally approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank Bonnie for our meeting the other day. It was nice that we had so much time to go through so much information. I'm glad that this is where we are now. We're back at the beginning and we can get some clarity on everything. It was just getting a little bit out of control, a little bit wanky. So thank you for meeting with me the other day. And thank you for being able to go back to the beginning with confidence. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of letting people know what's going on and getting rid of some of the crazy rumors that are out there, because there was some pretty wild ones. So thank you for the meeting.
Any other questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you for indulging me a second time. On your slide 11, it shows the proposal site plan, and I'm a little confused because what I thought were elements of the existing hospital that would be reutilized, it just seems like they're covered in parking. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding it. Could you be clear about it?
Sure. So the question is, you don't see existing buildings being reutilized?
Correct. Yeah. All I see is lots of parking.
Yeah. So the proposed building in slide 11 was a complete rebuild, all new, 1.4 million square feet on the north side of Terrace Hill. And then part of that plan would be to determine what the disposition of all other buildings south of the site are. We've obviously said that buildings B and C, which are 1950s and 60s building, would be demolished, and we would create the new parking lot on the south side of Terrace Hill. So that's what the plan shows, yeah.
So the plan, well, I know it's only diagrammatic, but it shows no reuse of any facility.
That's correct. That's correct. That's what was submitted. No reuse of any of our existing facilities.
Okay, so then that rather I'm confused then about why you would actually build there if you're not going to reuse any of your existing facilities. Second point, if I may, and this will come as a very very positive piece of news to residents of the county. The Willett site, far from being disposed of as it was planned a few years ago, looks like it will get either rebuilt or there will be a new Willett, or whatever we will call it at that time. So I think that's really, really good news for our community, and thank you for that.
Just one additional comment on. So in March of 2022, and I think that date's been thrown around, that's when we actually got our approval to move forward with stage 1.2. That approval came with a series of parameters, which basically said that we had to reuse our existing site. So, yeah, completely understand the greenfield, but the use of the brownfield is a ministry directive. We signed off on that. Our board actually signed back that agreement that we would do that. It also, though, did include the reuse. They wanted us to reuse B, C, and D. The options that Bonnie mentioned earlier that were brought forward, 3 options, 2 of those options included the reuse of B, C, and D. The problem with those is the timing that it would take to do that in the renovation, the cost of doing that, and the operational efficiency of doing that was really poor. Hence, the only option that we took forward is the one that you see, which is a complete rebuild on the existing site. So to the best of our ability, we stayed within the box, and we provided them what was the most efficient, cost-effective, and schedule-effective building that we could propose within those parameters. So that's the context that we're working in now, John. So, thanks.
Yeah, if I could just stress again, hence why we had to provide a design from a facilities development proposal perspective that was on our site. So, that's again based on that directive that we received from March of 2022. However, stressing the disposition of D is yet to be known. It is not included in our plan as being used because it was built 22 years ago. So it is not part of our actual plan at this point. However, all of the new build would be in the space available in the parking area on the north part of Terrence.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, how does committee want to go forward with this? Mayor Bailey?
Receive as information.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Miller, yeah?
Seconded, but I believe they're looking for a letter of support. Yes.
Yes.
So I'll if Mayor Bailey wants to tidy up that.
Receive and send a letter of support?
Yes, support for a hospital in theory. There's really nothing to support any other way. Just the idea of a new hospital.
Concept.
We'll support a new hospital and leave it open-ended, I guess.
Councilor Miller, you're okay with that? Okay. Councilor Bell to the motion?
Yes, to the motion. I think if I understood right, what Bonnie is looking for is a letter of support that endorses advancing the facility development plan. And I think right now we can all support a new hospital, but if we can't even see the facility development plan because it's not actually written, it's rather difficult to support it. So I think we can only go so far in terms of offering our support.
Any other comments to the motion? Councilor Chambers?
So the motion is basically what they're asking for, receive it and a letter of support from the county that endorses advancing the facility development. That's what's on the table.
Yes.
You support that, or you don't?
Correct. Any other questions? Councilor Bell?
Dantic, but we can't, how can we endorse a facility development plan that we can't see? I mean, if we could see it and read it, then we'd be in a better place to endorse it. Endorsing the fact we need a new hospital, a bigger hospital, no doubt about that.
Okay, I think we're slicing threads here. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, what I'm going to do is I'll be in contact with Bonnie and her and I will go through what she needs in the letter of support from the county.
Okay, at the end of the day, I think what we're looking for here is a letter from county council that we support the endeavor of a build of a new hospital. Period.
Yep.
We're all good with that? Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimous. Okay, as I said, 4.2 is withdrawn. So we're going to go to 4.3. Henry Stolp. Welcome, Henry.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Whenever you're ready.
Members of the committee. My name is Henry Stolp, and I'm a local resident of Brant, as well as a builder developer. We started in Brant in 2007 as a developer, and 2010 as a builder, and as Pinevest Homes. And in 2004, I bought our first property in downtown Paris through a company called Northern Rudder. So if you see applications with Northern Rudder, it's something we've been doing for a long time. We are very much in support of the report before you. I think it's excellent. Since last time I saw Greg, he shaved his beard, and it looks fantastic. In the report, it refers to downtown core significant growth and changes, and you've seen that as it goes today. The Royal, Wincy Mills, Stillwaters, John Hall has been the only solid thing which hasn't changed at all. And the setting where we are on the Grand and the Nith is spectacular, including our parks and trails and walkways. So it's a wonderful place to be. We've been working with staff over the last 18 to 24 months dealing with the parking situation. Our preference was to actually purchase 6 spots. We have 6 units that are being built. We expect completion to be sometime in December of this year. It's going very well, and we should have a roof on sometime either later this week or sometime next week. So the project has gone pretty well. So rather than being able to purchase spots, having parking permits for residential uses, especially on the east side of Grand River Street North is very important to us. And where we would like to have them is the part of the 10 spots that are in the Cenotaph parking lot. It's the only request I have is that we have ongoing discussions with Greg, because what we'd like to do is probably tie up 6 spots before we actually have residents living in there. So that's something we'd like to do. And I would think quarterly permits is better than monthly permits, and have the first right of refusal by people who have them to have ongoing situations with them. There's 266 spots within downtown Paris. 44 have not had a parking, and 33 are on Grand River Street North. I haven't done this for a long time, so I'm a bit nervous, even though I know you all. Last time was before COVID, I think. And of those, the most concern I have is on the east side of Grand River. So we're very much in support of staff's recommendations, other than the 2 things I talked about. One is quarterly renewals as opposed to monthly, and to find a way where we can have 6 spots before we actually have residents moving in for our purposes. So I'm happy to answer any questions and go from there.
Okay. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Henry. That's all fine and good, Henry, but I had brought to bylaw the little restaurant beside you that have been in business for 45 years, and he still doesn't have a place to park, nor does his wife, for the restaurant. So I hope that if we're going to secure 6 for Henry, we're going to also provide 2 for the Chinese restaurant that are getting tickets always. And I spoke to bylaw about it just before this whole thing came up. And I mean, there are other people that are going to be in the same position as the people that Henry are bringing into the new units that have been here for 45 years. And we haven't done anything for permits for them. And it's not fair. And so I hope that when we review this, there's more than 6.
Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some similar concerns as the mayor, but I'll wait and bring them up when we get into that part of the agenda, but I appreciate Henry coming in.
Okay. Any other questions for Henry? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How does committee want to go? Mayor Bailey?
Receive for information.
And move to refer it to,
the bylaw.
what is it, 8.2.
Yeah.
Councillor Coleman, you're good with that? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Coleman. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, no more delegations. So can I get a mover adoption of the previous minutes? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Kyle. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, moving on. Consent items to be approved. We've got one there, 7.1.1 RPT 0256-24, the award of the Darnley Bridge rehabilitation. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Coleman, second. Councillor Oakley. Questions on that report? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And reading the report, I see that you've reached out to the Six Nations about detours and whatnot. Have you reached out to the area residents on where they're going to have to travel?
Mr. Walton.
Through the chair to Councillor Coleman, no, that there hasn't been discussion with residents. There will be communication with them as we get ready to do the contract now, when it's which is the usual procedure.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further to that, please don't tell me that you're just going to put a sign up and have some barcode that you have to read. Are you going? What I'm saying is, are you going to contact these residents by putting a flyer in their mailbox? Because this is not detailing one street. This is concessions, especially the ones on the far end of River Road, that where we had to close River Road, have to come all the way back, all the way around. It's not just one little block.
Mr. Walton?
Through the chair to Councillor Coleman. Certainly we understand the complexities of the area we might have to communicate with, and we'll have a look at that and maybe have a little discussion with you as well as to what that could be so that we get some local input. Thank you.
Councilor Coleman? Any other questions on this report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Consent items to be received. There's 3 of them. Anybody want anything pulled? Councilor Coleman? Councilor Miller?
I want to go a question on fire prevention activity, 721, I guess.
All right, we're going to go one by one. So 721, can I get a mover to receive? Councilor McAlpine, Councilor Coleman. Councilor Miller, question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We get the reports every month, and the question's triggered actually based on the annual report. There's an increase in residential inspections, slight increase. Well, my question is, what triggers a residential or a commercial inspection? Is it a new build? Does somebody call them? I don't know the mechanics behind that.
Chief Watson's going to come up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Usually they're driven through complaints or people requesting one.
Okay, so we don't proactively go out and knock on doors and say we're going to come inspect it.
No.
Today's the day.
No.
Okay. But I will say, because I've seen, I think maybe it wasn't you we talked, where the fire department is proactive in going door to door and asking if they want, their smoke alarms checked or their carbon monoxide checked. But we don't do that here, or we haven't done that.
No. What we do on fire calls is we do have flyers that we drop off 10, 20 homes in that area. Just smoke alarm program.
Okay. I don't know if that's something you guys have thought of, but like I said, I've seen it. Well, I've seen them doing it on Woodstock when I was there. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so all in favor of 721? Opposed? That's carried. 722, can I get a mover? Councilor Coleman, Councilor Kyle. Councilor Coleman, you had a question? 7.23, like I said, all in favor of 722? Opposed? Carried. 723, Councilor Coleman, you'll move it?
Got you there, didn't I, Mr. Chair?
You'll move it first? You'll move it?
I'll move it.
Seconder? Councilor Oakley, Councilor Coleman.
Now I can speak. Thank you. Reading the report, and I appreciate staff having me out there last week to have a tour of the gymnasium at the Onondaga Branch School. And I appreciate the report that you have to have 100 square feet per kitty, whatever. I don't know how better to say it. Children, how's that? Okay. I just want clarification. So I think there's confusion that some of us thought this was a daycare program, and it's not. I understand this is a rec program. So if staff can confer with that, and is there money that comes into us from the city of Brantford or social service or anything like that? That's what I need to know, so that people understand.
Who could respond to that? Okay, perfect. Kitty.
Through you, Chair. So yes, this is a recreation after school program. So we treat it like any other rec program that we would have, that anyone would sign up for. In regards to funding, no, there is no money that comes in from the city of Brantford or social services. This program is funded through the Ministry Tourism, Culture and Sport through their after school strategy, as well as the remaining dollars come from the actual participants signing up through their fees.
You good with that, Councilor Coleman? Okay. Okay, no, Councilor Miller, question?
Yes, thank you. In the report, Sarah wrote that it was grandfathered in. It was this program from the YMCA. So there's certain terms and conditions I'm sure that come about because of that grandfather. And how long will those be in play for?
Till we can work out some type of cohesiveness with the two different school boards, because what's happening is we have participants that are coming from the Catholic school, which is the closest Catholic option for the folks that live in Onondaga Brant. And then we have participants that attend the Onondaga Brant school. So as of right now, we are not in the Catholic option, which is the St. Gabe's. We are just in Onondaga Brant. So we're accommodating those kids that are residents from St. Gabe's into Onondaga Brant's program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that report? Councillor Coleman?
Well, just further that, Mr. Chair, is that I would encourage staff to keep working with the Board of Education to see if we can get more schools in that area, because if you look at and read the report, how many are on the waiting list, that's a big thing, and that would certainly help to alleviate the participants that we can get into the program.
No problem.
No further questions on that? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, staff reports. 8.1, RPT-0223-24, negotiations of a contract extension for solid waste collection and processing services. Mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Bell. Questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, I guess it's Andrea. Yeah. The second clause of the recommendation talks about the status quo solid waste collection program with a budget for this year of 1.4 million. Just to be clear, that does exclude Blue Box. Just for clarity, so we can compare apples and apples.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell, 1.4, the current budget does include Blue Box. The Blue Box transition won't begin until 2025.
Okay, so the figure going down the page then, the 2.65 million, I presume that excludes Blue Box.
Through you, Chair, you're correct.
So we're comparing apples and pears on that one. What would the 1.4 be without Blue Box? Or can you not tell me?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I would have to take that back and pull that number out. We really were comparing the full solid waste management budget, currently at the 1.4. So the increased budget is a reduction in service.
Yeah, so the 85% actually is more for the service we will get. It will be more than an 85% increase.
Through you, Chair, residential Blue Box pickup will continue. The county will no longer be paying for it.
No, I understand that, but
yeah.
You say here that's an 85% increase to the 2024 budget for these services, except we got one number which is different in terms of service from the other. So it's actually going to be more likely 100%. I'm going to guess what the number is. But
sure.
Related to that, I think if I go back to when Councillor Ferrier was part of this council, I think when we talked about Blue Box and its removal, I think we agreed, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that any savings we got from the Blue Box removal from our payment would actually go to the Affordable Housing Reserve. And then perhaps staff can just tell me if I'm right or wrong on that one, and maybe my fellow councillors can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Can you remember that? I'm looking at Steve since he was the partner of...
I recall, through the chair, I recall Mark bringing forward a plan where when the county disposed of properties, those funds went into a program for affordable housing. That's how I remember it.
But so I would appreciate from staff if we could just clarify whether it included the Blue Box. That was in the back of my mind.
Okay. Anybody from staff comment on that at this point? Mr. Walton?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, there was a resolution that went through these monies were going to be redirected. I can't remember exactly where. But the reality is what the reality is here. There is no savings because of the changes in the market. So we live with what we can. The number that you're looking for and what the cost of the recycling is around just a little less than 300,000 is off the top of my head as to what we would save by that. But you really can't say what that is because that contract is to collect both with a communal truck. So it's doing that. You can't really say what the cost. All we can say is what we get funded on through the producers right now, which is I think is around 300,000.
Still appreciate, if I may, Mr. Chair, that we go back and look at whatever we said. I'm going back a few years now when this first came up. But if we have committed as a council to put that money into an affordable housing reserve, that I think stands, unless we didn't say that. But it does mean that if it's $300,000, then the equivalent budget for 2024 will be 1.1 million, and it's now going to 2.6 billion. So that's 100 and some % increase.
Councillor Miller?
Just to that point, in the report, I mean, it does say the blue box is $280,000 expense for this year, 2024. So I'm guessing that's what it is. The question through Mr. Chair to Andrew, we only had the one bidder. That was it. It was Emterra. And other municipalities, they're facing the same thing. They're not getting many bids. And can you maybe talk about why that is? Because I know there's more than Emterra out there in the world.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miller. Other municipalities are seeing similar increases in budget as we've seen. Haldeman had an 87% increase in their solid waste management contract with the removal of the recycling. When we did reach back out to understand from potential bidders in the community as to why they were not interested, there were a few reasons. The ability to get fleet was a large concern. Emterra did and was able to secure fleet in advance of this with the anticipation that they were going to realize some additional contracts. Another one is the uncertainty with the blue box transition. Thirdly is it's not as an extremely lucrative business here in the county because of the distance between stops. So a lot of the potential bidders that were out there were waiting for the dust to settle. Another item that was fed back to us is here in the county we do have manual collection, and contractors are finding it increasingly hard to retain staff, and so they're more interested in municipalities that have automated collection. So that's the feedback that we got from the market.
One quick question then. Here we are in May 2024, so 2025, we're going to change. Right now, does it look like it would be the same way it's picked up always, or do we know if it'll be a different outfit picking up the blue box?
Through you,
Like,
Chair.
would it still be the one truck, Emterra, coming along getting the garbage in the blue box? And I know, like, we won't have to pay for the blue box and arrange it, but from where you're sitting, does it look like it'd be just business as usual for the average resident?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miller, until the end of this year, correct. Come January 2025, we're unsure who's going to get the blue box collection contract. It may be multiple trucks.
Okay, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? Councillor McAlpine.
I think, yeah, what we've been kind of leaning to, there's some synergies the way we have it set up because we collect the recycling and the garbage at the same time. Is there a possibility when the dust settles that there might be some savings if they can be arranged for Emterra to pick up the recycling at the same time?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor McAlpine, not with the current contract. If we awarded the contract as the price is negotiated, then no.
No other questions? Report is moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.2 RPT 283-24 BIA residential permit parking. Greg, when you're ready.
I believe the report is self-explanatory. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Going to move her to get it on the floor. Councillor Howes, Mayor Bailey. Questions on the report? Councillor Howes, then Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you.
I have a bit of a unique perspective on this. I think I'm, with the exception of Henry Stolp himself, I think I'm the only person in the room who's lived in downtown Paris, and there were fond memories of living here, less fond memories of the parking tickets I used to get when I forgot to move my car, and that happened a lot. I like the direction that this is going in terms of giving downtown residents an opportunity to have access to some parking spots. Like the mayor, or at least I think I'm interpreting the mayor accurately, I'm not in favor of selling parking spots to residents of downtown Paris. I think that will get too complicated. I think it's a bit of an insult to the people who have lived downtown for decades, who would move their cars to a 24-hour parking spot. But I wanted to get some clarity on what I see as a new temporary program until after the big dig, and then maybe we'll be looking at it again. But if I live in downtown Paris now, I can park for free in a 24-hour parking lot, but I'm taking my chances that there'll be a spot there. Let's start there, correct?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And if I go to the town office and I pay, and we don't know how much yet because that's yet to be determined, pay to be basically to have a membership in the downtown parking club, downtown resident parking club. In that scenario, like, so there's 40, we've learned there's 44 dwellings in the BIA area that don't have any parking at all. We're looking at putting in 20 parking spots as our first attempt at this. Does that mean that the 21st person to come along and want to buy a membership in this club gets put on a waiting list?
Through the chair, I think that's what we're contemplating right now. A big part of this exercise for us is to determine what the demand is going to be. We really don't have any idea right now what the demand is going to be. We suspect that people already have, made alternative parking arrangements in private lots. So a big part of this exercise, again, is just to figure out what the demand is and kind of grow the program or contract the program from there. And we've had conversations with the BIA, and we are cognizant that there is a desire for them to have some permit parking as well. So that's not off the table. That's something that we're cognizant of. Right now, the lens for this report was the focus was on residential parking for residents in the BIA.
Okay, thank you. Just one more through the chair.
Go ahead.
So if I become a member of this club, so to speak, and that's telling me that I have access to those 20 parking spots, it's not giving me a specific parking spot, correct?
Through the chair, we really haven't worked out those details. It may be that, this is your spot, this is the number that you have, and this is where you're going to park. Or it could just be that that particular area will be for, people that have paid for those lots, either in lot 11 or lot 3.
Okay, last question. So council will see more details on that before this program gets finalized?
Through the chair, yes. Yes, there'll be a follow-up report.
Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering if Greg can comment on Henry's submission and what the mayor had brought up just after the delegation.
Through the chair. Yes, with Henry's request, certainly something that we can look at. I think that there may be occupancy by the time this program is developed. So I think that, the residents themselves may have the ability to make application by the time, we're ready to roll it out. One of the things is that we want fair and equitable access to these permits. In answer to the mayor's question, I'm not 100% familiar with the situation that he was describing. I'm not sure if those are residents of the BIA. I mean, if they are residents of the BIA, there is a permit program in place right now where they can make application to use lot number 2 in excess of 24 hours. If they do have some issues with parking, I mean, there's 24-hour lots that they can move their vehicles to. I can't speak to it directly. I would have to have more information. Probably a conversation we should have outside of council chambers.
Yeah, I believe Mayor has just returned. We're just talking about you. The residents and the business that the mayor was referring to, if you can look into that as well, and the mayor can sit in and hopefully those issues can be resolved as well.
Through the chair, absolutely.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.3 RPT-0158-24 Mile Hill Road update. Not sure if anybody's going to speak to it, or Greg, you want to speak to it? Can I get a mover to get it on the floor first? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Howes. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you. I'm here to answer some questions about the report. There's a lot of information in there. The one thing I'd like to point out that this was a pretty contentious topic at one time, but through a lot of feedback and implementation of some traffic calming from the for the neighborhood, we actually met the goals that we were trying to get to. We reduced the speeds considerably, we reduced the traffic, and we reduced the accidents. So I think it's a good news story, but I'm here to answer some questions.
Councillor Miller, then Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Here to Greg. Greg, yeah, I did go to the public meeting at the Twin Pad. So the idea of one-way traffic is off the table, it looks like, for at least a couple of years.
Through the chair, I believe that's correct. We can take direction if council wishes to go in another direction. But I don't see it as being necessary right now. But I do believe it's something that staff should keep an eye on for the coming years as development takes place.
Okay. Yeah, that I had to read a little bit, but I seen it was written in there. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Howes and Councillor Bell.
This is more of a comment. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thanks to Greg and your team who put this information together. Great to see the statistics improving. And I wanted to highlight that this is a very good example of community engagement and how that can influence decisions. 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago, there were a lot of people concerned about the issue of safety on Mile Hill and whether it was going to turn to one way and we occasionally hear the comment to council that, oh, there's no point in engaging with council, it's a done deal. You're just wasting your time talking to council. This is a perfect example of county staff sitting down, listening, and then putting a lot of work into coming up with better solutions. So I just wanted to commend everybody involved in that, and it was great to see an improved outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
I'd like to
hang on.
Through the chair, and based on the comment Councillor Howes made, I'd agree 100% with that, except for one thing. We haven't made this better for active transportation except for the initial bit of better safety. So I think that the go forward of this is look forward to the next TMP and look at it in the global scheme of things as to what we're doing with this road. Because if we do get 4,000 cars a day on this road, it's not going to be safe. And we're going to be back to the same thing again. So I think we need to do those projections, and we may need to make a global decision as to what we're going to do. We only really heard from the people right adjacent to this road. We want to be able to drive through here and whatever. And when you look at the statistics for this, yeah, the statistics for the cars is you've got a 6 or 7 minute detour of the one way. The one way you're the same way, but the other way you got a 6 or 7. But what was it for the active transportation? Hours for the walking, and a long time for the biking too. So I think as we look forward, put this as a thing to look at in the TMP and then make a long-term decision. Are we going to invest a lot of money in this road? Are we going to make it one way? What are we going to do? So I think we've set ourselves up for what the next piece is going to be. And then it'll be up to us to follow through on that when that comes. But in the interim, it is a good news story. We have made interim improvements based on the consultation. So I think that's really good. But we're setting ourselves up for the next piece of consultation. So I think we need to hold that out to their people. That's when the real decision needs to be made.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you. Again, a little bit of a comment. I just thought people might like to know that social media attributes to me this being a brilliant idea to make Mile Hill a one-way street. So I'm pleased that people recognise that. I didn't read the rest of the social media piece either. But despite all that, I mean, what we have done is made Mile Hill safer. So maybe the end justifies the means. And here we've got a better system. And as Rob rightly points out, this is just part one of a story that will continue. If we continue to develop that section of our town to the south behind the sports complex in the way that I've heard it's going to get developed, we could be adding another 800 dwellings there. And that really will put a lot of pressure on people to get downtown, so that road will become even busier. And I think we do need to see it in the context of the next transportation master plan. And it may be that we do something significant and different then. But on a positive note, I'm glad we relocated the Grand River Cycle Trail, because that, I think we were actually setting ourselves up for a real problem by directing traffic down that route until we could make sure it's safe for active transportation. So thank you to staff for doing all they've done.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I've got one quick comment and one quick question myself. The quick comment that I have is the knockdown sign behind my place. It's taken a beating, and I'm always impressed with those things knocked down and they come back up. So it's been run over a few times. At any rate, the big question here is as far as the permanent speed humps, when?
Through the chair to the chair, it'll be sometime this summer. I wanted to get direction here, and then we'll line it up with the contractors. So once we get direction after council, we'll line somebody up to come in and do that. I just want to make sure we were all on the same page before moving forward. But the bug is in the rear that we're gonna do these this summer, possibly.
Perfect. Okay. No other questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. 8.4, RPT-0292-24, parking and traffic modifications. Mover? Councillor Coleman. Seconder, Councillor Oakley. Questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 7, Birch Road, you're removing the spring load restriction between Pleasant Ridge Road and Mount Pleasant Road, and I presume that's all going to go if the road is perfectly reconstructed this year. Are you putting load restrictions, I can't remember, on Ellis Ave to direct the traffic down to Birch Road?
Through the chair, I'll have to look into that. Sorry, you caught me. I wasn't expecting that question. Usually I've studied very well for these. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll actually have to write that down because I won't remember everything that you just asked.
I just wanted to see if you're awake after a long weekend. So
I appreciate that.
Councillor Chambers.
Maybe Greg has forgot about that, but what he shouldn't have forgot is that Elliott Road is not in Mount Vernon. It's somewhere else, but definitely not in Mount Vernon. It's in the middle of nowhere, actually, but it's not in Mount Vernon.
Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Greg. Really pleased to see Glen Morris Road East on here, because I know I've had lots of complaints. So my question is, so if we added the restriction for heavy trucks onto that road, who enforces that? So if residents continue to see them coming down that road, who should they be in touch with to make sure that that's enforced?
So through the chair, that is an OPP function. The county bylaw doesn't have the authority to pull people over and ticket them. So is that a Highway Traffic Act, and then the OPP have specially trained officers that deal with the trucking industry for weighing them and going over their logs and everything. So if you do encounter a lot of complaints with that, I do meet with the OPP every other week, and we do try to bring these spots up to them for target enforcement.
No other questions? Yeah, and to that one, Councilor Kyle as well, I can bring that to PSB if you want as well. No other questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 8.5, RPT 0294-24, OPP agreement with the province for additional services. Cindy, I'm not sure if you're going to speak to this.
Through the chair, I think the report's pretty straightforward, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mover to get it on the floor. Councilor Kyle, Councilor Oakley, questions? Councilor Chambers.
Just not so much a question, but a comment. This may be one of the things that we don't need. We've expended a lot of money in other avenues in making road safety and traffic calming, those kind of things, which have had, as we just talked about, a good effect on many roads and many streets, Mile High being one of them. Perhaps the expenditures are best done in that area rather than to add additional police to enforce speeding. If we look at the costs and the cost benefit, it's not that we want to catch speeders, it's that we want to prevent speeding. Getting speeding tickets does, and the visibility does prevent speeding, but traffic calming measures do much more in my opinion. So I'm not going to support this. I would much sooner see that the money be expended toward things that we've been doing in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, which have had a better effect than what I believe this can be. And in addition to that, I believe that money can be saved because maybe we can cut some costs in that area. So I'm not going to support this. I think it's there are better ways to reduce speeding in the county than to hire 2 police officers that may be in only 2 particular locations in the county at any one particular time.
Councilor Miller, then Councilor Howes.
Yeah, just a question, Mr. Chair. Actually, kind of along the same lines as Councilor Chambers' comments. Because in the report, we see the number of charges, 2022, 2389 for Part 1 charges, 2023, 2,329 charges. What I was kind of hoping to see is how effective, I guess, are these 2 constables? Is there a way we can gauge what we're getting for our money?
How effective, as in how many tickets and that sort of thing?
Well, that's one metric, and I don't know if there's other metrics to gauge that effectiveness, right? Tickets is an objective way, but is there other ways to say, well, it would be good, it would be nice if we could say, well, we've reduced speeding by 10% because of these 2. Is there any way we can gauge how effective the money spent to date has been?
Let me touch on that, and then I'll pass over to. I know as far as the tickets, one of the constables actually was noted as the most tickets in the region. So I think that that kind of speaks for itself on that. As far as judging the, have we slowed them down or not, I'm not sure there is a way to do that. But Cindy, I'll pass if you can think of anything. I'm not sure there is.
Through the chair, I think that would be difficult for sure to evaluate. One thing that comes to mind for me is looking at whether or not we have had a reduction in accidents, perhaps. I'd have to look further into whether or not we can obtain that type of data. But that's just off the top of my head. There could be a couple of other metrics as well. Just giving some more thought and perhaps having conversation with our colleagues in roads and OPP.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I guess maybe that kind of explains why I didn't read it in the report. But I think the question is a good question. Because I asked it, no, because it would be good to see how, like I say, is the money well spent? And like I say, I have no data here in the report to say it has been or it hasn't been. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm going to take a little bit of a different point of view than Councillor Chambers. On one hand, I agree that we have to take different approaches. I don't think it's just one solution. I believe there's a whole kind of menu of tactics that we can utilize to improve the safety in our communities. But I still, I look at from a perspective of 6 years on council now that probably the topic that I receive the most resident communications on is this one. And there's a lot of emails that end with, before someone gets killed, you need to deal with it. And we know that, and last time I checked, I think the taxpayers pay $5 million a year for OPP services. And we know that this council does not and cannot dictate what are the priorities of our police force. That's dictated by them based on their statistics on what's the most endangerment to life. And we also know that traffic issues like related to speeding and bad driving, that kind of thing, are not even in the top five of the OPP statistics on what's endangerment to life. There's a lot of other things that take their priority. So I am still supportive of us investing in this particular approach.
Okay, Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, I have similar sentiments to Councillor Howes, and I think for me, one of the things that stands out, I absolutely agree, we do need to make sure we're investing enough into things like traffic calming, but the other thing we have to keep in mind is that there's many parts of our county that those traffic calming measures maybe are not necessarily appropriate or useful. So for example, we have a lot of rural roads that are arterial roads. We have a lot of speeding. I follow the OPP West region on social media, and repeatedly the highest speeds that they're catching are in the county of Brant. And often on my road and on roads on the peripheral where people are using it to connect from one highway to another. And we have a lot of farm equipment that's out moving around on those where, again, the traffic calming measures aren't necessarily appropriate. So I personally would love to see a couple of extra officers out doing their thing and catching some speeders. And if nothing else, making people think twice about going through some of those areas where we can't necessarily put the knockdowns or the speed bumps and that type of thing.
Councillor Bell, then Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, just to add to Councillor Kyle and Councillor Howe's view, we have not really got an alternative for locations like Councillor Kyle just mentioned, and we've made such little progress on automatic speed enforcement, which ultimately would be the right answer for anybody that goes to Europe. Just look around; there are speed cameras everywhere. And it does bring speeding to people's attention, and people do slow down. And until we reach that point of having an equivalent system, I think having two dedicated transportation constables is a good short-term answer.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I fully agree with what Councillor Kyle is saying. Traffic calming measures work in the urban areas, but they don't work on 80-kilometer roads. We gotta have some enforcement measures. Councillor Kyle's road is bad, 18, Coxet Road, 53, I can name a whole whack. If you get through the villages, it's a different story. But we need them on those outlying. I don't like getting tickets any more than what Councillor Chambers does. We both had a number of tickets over the years. I'm not sure who's got the most, but I do respect when they're out there trying to enforce the issue, and I think that's what needs to be done. And along with Councillor Howes says, that is the biggest complaint I still get, speeding. And he's right. That little line that says right to the last before somebody gets killed.
Councillor Oakley.
through the chair, since everyone else is commenting, I would be inclined to agree with Councillor Cowell and Councillor Howes in terms of the value of these officers. Again, it's one of the most common emails I receive. I would, however, I am interested in what Councillor Miller is asking for, which is more data. I'm not really sure how much value the ticket numbers really give me in terms of telling me that it's reducing speed. You know, something along the lines of say, you know, County Road 53, if we set up a regular sting there, if we can see that the drop in speed, then I can see that it's effective. I'm not necessarily sure we can extrapolate that from ticket information. So more information like that in the future would be very helpful to see that it is definitively working.
Okay. So I guess we can talk to I'm thinking potentially to have the inspector come in to either, you know, admin, or I think they're going to be coming in soon to do an overall discussion, but maybe she can focus a little bit more on the traffic control and bring whatever stats she can for that. Did you want to add something, Cindy? Or?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I get, yeah, we'll wait for some stats, but I can probably guarantee you that the vast majority of those 2,300 people that were ticketed are probably going to slow down. That's not all of them. Some are obviously slow learners, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Chambers, but that's okay. Yeah. Councillor Chambers.
I just wanted to make the point that these aren't the only two officers in the system that are giving tickets. And I would be the first to admit that a sign on Highway 53 that's flashing and says you're going too fast isn't going to run and chase you and give a ticket, but it is going to slow you down. And that isn't costing half as much as it was for the person that's running to chase you down, which may be in Glenmorris at the time the speeder is on 53 highway.
So just for clarification, correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, but these particular tickets are strictly from the traffic management group. They are solely the two constables that we put in there. Are there other ones? Absolutely. But these are strictly from that unit. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Okay. Councilman Calpine.
I was just curious, do they track the number of hours that are allotted for traffic control with those other constables? So that, just to make sure that we're not losing hours for traffic control when we add these two new officers from the other, if you sort of follow me?
Sorry, I'm not.
Okay. So do they track, okay, on our contract, okay, the basic one. Okay, yeah. Is a certain percentage of that allotted for traffic control, or is it, there's just no?
This is, the two constables are for the traffic management.
Yeah, but on the basic contract, below that, as we were talking, all the officers do some traffic control. Okay, I'm just wondering if there's a specific percentage of their time that is spent on traffic control.
I'm not sure if I'm not sure what percentage of time there is. Yeah. Cindy, can you?
I wouldn't be able to answer that, but certainly can follow up with Inspector Quenville to see if that data is tracked or available.
The other part of that, is our contingency back up to full contingency still? Because we were down some officers over the last few years. I think we are.
We are, yeah, and she can speak to that when she comes in as well.
Okay.
So, okay. Any other questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that is it for to be approved. So we're on to section 9, communications. I see none. Community minutes and reports, 10.1. Mover, Mayor Bailey, Councillor Kyle. Any questions of the accessibility advisory report? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.2, Brand Heritage. Mover, Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Howes. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Tourism, in a mover, Councillor Oakley. Seconder, Councillor Coleman. Questions on that one? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 11, we've got a resolution notice of motion. 11.1 procedural review, Councillor Oakley. It's got a notice of motion there. Do you want to add to it, or it is what it is?
Just as a brief observation for it, I think with the political temperature changing, our procedural bylaw has been good in terms of flexibility in a time when people were engaging in good faith, but I think there's been some less than good faith engagement lately, and I think it's time to tighten things up so that we can ensure that everyone has a fair and equitable access to council and our procedures.
Okay, and you're bringing this when?
Next week.
Okay, to council. Council next week? Okay, I don't think any more is required on that one there. We'll leave that as it is. 11.2, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm bringing forward a notice of motion, which I would like to have heard actually today. I do have a seconder in Mayor Bailey. The motion is that the County of Brant Council support the position of the Brant County Health Unit and affirm that the County of Brant is not in favour of embedding the health unit within the city of Brantford. So let me talk to why we should deal with it today. There is an urgency to consider this motion. The City Council will be hearing a committee of the whole recommendation to investigate embedding the health unit in the city administration next Tuesday. And ahead of that, I think it's important that the county, as a health unit funding partner and a served municipality, has a clear position on the matter of embedding the health unit. So accordingly, I seek to dispense with notice in accordance with Section 20 of our procedural bylaw to allow the motion to be voted on during this meeting.
Okay, so we have a notice of motion. It is seconded.
If there are no objections to me bringing the motion forward, I'll just continue on. But if there are objections, then I want to waive the notice period, and then we would need to vote.
Any objections at this point? Okay. Seeing none.
So then, having been seconded by Mayor Bailey and proposed by myself, I would like to speak to it. I'm going to be a bit long-winded, and I apologise for that in advance. Last month, the Brant County Health Unit Board of Health supported an intent to merge with Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit. Norfolk Council, which acts as the Board of Health for Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, similarly supported the intent to merge with Brant County Health Unit. And both health units have actually advised their intent to the Ministry of Health. Last week, the City Council supported a motion raised by Councillor McCreary, one of the three appointed city members to the Board of Health, A, directing the city staff to investigate steps needed to embed the health unit in the city administration, and B, affirming the City Council's disagreement to a merger of Brant County Health Unit with Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit. So aside from the apparent violation of the city's own code of conduct that requires under section 16.8.3 of their code of conduct, that decisions of council or local boards are not undermined by members of the council or the board, the city motion to direct staff to explore embedding is flawed on a number of levels. The county, we are funding partners, we are a served municipality, and yet the city did not have the courtesy to share in advance with us that such a motion would be brought forward, nor did they ask our views on its merits. And even on approval, the City Council chose not to formally inform us. And it should be noted that any application by the city for provincial government approval to embed the health unit would require the approval of the city and the county as a served municipality and funding partner. The city would envisage the oversight of the embedded unit to be similar to social services, and many of us have served on social services and know how that works. An embedded unit would exclude provincial appointees, and my experience over the last 5 years on the Board of Health is that these appointees actually provide balance to municipal representatives. They provide valuable community input. They take the majority of the board leadership role, and they focus firmly on what is in the best interests of the health of the community and not what is necessarily in the interests of any individual municipality. The city's claims of savings through embedding the health unit in the city administration structure shows a lack of understanding of the funding model and of the complexities of managing a health unit. And it should be noted that the City of Hamilton is actively considering alternatives to their current embedded model, and Norfolk Council are anxious to un-embed, if that's the right verb, the health unit of the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit from their administration structure. And added to which, Haldeman Norfolk is looking forward to being represented, because they're not represented at the moment on any health unit. And the COVID pandemic taught us once again that public health is better served by evidence-based decision-making by health officials than by decisions driven by political factions. The move away from embedding towards autonomous governance recognises that. The city expressed concern about the loss of urban focus at the health unit in favour of rural. Yet most of our neighbouring health units have a mix of urban and rural constituents, and they manage very well the needs of all citizens. And Hamilton and Niagara health units were used as examples at the City Council's meeting last week, and both these health units have a heavy urban and rural mix. So the City Council is rowing against the tide of neighbouring municipalities and very much against the direction expressed by the Provincial Minister of Health in her speech at the AMO conference last year in London, in which she encouraged, with the full support of AMO, the voluntary merger of smaller health units. Added to that, her ministry has made an unprecedented offer of funding to support voluntary mergers with the objective of strengthening public health. That funding programme will be available for the coming 3 years and will ensure that participating municipalities will not be financially impacted. Under the provincial voluntary merger programme, monies from efficiencies gained can be reinvested in local public health. It's not a cost-saving exercise, it's a strengthening exercise. The Minister also indicated that health units that merge voluntarily will be treated more advantageously than those that do not when the public health funding formula is revised in the coming 2 to 3 years. The city's plan to embed the health unit would not strengthen public health, but rather would diminish it. I believe that embedding the health unit in the city administration structure will lead to significant staff attrition, and it would make recruitment an increasing challenge in an already tight healthcare market. In the last 5 years, and perhaps even more so in the last couple of years, the Board of Health and the senior leadership of the health unit have worked really hard to build a culture of respect, support, collaboration, transparency, trust in the 120 employee organisation. Moving to being a department in the city which has over 1,300 employees has the potential to undo the hard work of the past years. And interestingly, given what we heard from the Brant County Healthcare System, Brant Community Healthcare System this morning, I also believe that the relationship with the Ministry of Health is going to suffer if we go this route. The leadership of the health unit at the board level and at the senior staff level has worked really hard over the last 5 years with ministry staff towards the achievement of provincial government's aim of strengthening public health, latterly including public mergers, but before that, in successfully addressing action plans following 2 ministry-led audits. We heard from Bonnie this morning that there's a need for alignment in our advocacy position with provincial government with respect to securing their support for a new hospital. That the city then should take a diametrically opposed position to the direction set out by provincial government and its Ministry of Health on voluntary mergers of health units would seem to be an alienating course of action that would negatively impact our attempts to gain the support for a new hospital. So in conclusion, and notwithstanding the inappropriateness of the challenge to a duly considered decision of the Board of Health by a city-appointed member of that board, the rationale for embedding the health unit in the city administration structure is flawed. It's contrary to provincial government and neighbouring municipalities' direction. It's contrary to a decision of the Board of Health and not in the best public health interests of our community. The Board of Health last week, the Mayor and I sit on that board, supported a motion affirming it is not in favour of embedding the health unit in the city administration. And I'm asking you then to support the motion on the floor affirming County Council support to BCHU's position. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just say I support the motion, and it's interesting because the author of the motion for the city pointed out, and Councillor Bell mentioned it, how they were concerned that there might be maybe more of a rural bias in the health unit. My concern is that if it got embedded in the city of Brantford, there might be more of an urban bias than a rural bias, and I think they do have a good balance when they keep the majority of the board members out of the two municipalities. And the concern about maybe an urban bias versus a rural bias, that's based on what I've seen. Social services, a lot of us have sat around that table. It is like pulling teeth sometimes to make sure that the rural focus is there. I understand a lot of the social services issues occur in the city, but at the same time, we are funding it, and those our issues also need to be addressed. So we fight that battle all the time. And there's a lot of other agencies. They think, well, we're going to go and work in the county, and as Councillor Garneau and I discussed, a lot of them just think if they set up a shop in Paris, they've got the county covered. No, they don't. They don't have Ashley covered. They don't have Glen Morris covered. They don't have Onondaga covered. So, there's more to the county than just setting up a shop in Paris. So, yeah, it's frustrating to see that motion come forward because they can't, they see the one side of it, but I don't understand why they can't see the rural side of it. So, yeah, fully in support of it.
I support the recommendation and I don't. And the preamble or the synopsis is more, I say this respectfully, more of an attack on the city and a city councillor than what it certainly needs to be. The city can do what they want to do. If they want to do what they do, let them do what they do. If she was on the other foot and we wanted to do something and the city pushed in and condemned us, that's not what we should be doing. The Board of Health is an independent body. It's a corporation. And sure, we are funding partners, but we are obligated funding partners, which means that we have to pay whether we agree or not. The Board of Health is certainly capable of making decisions in the best interest of the area that they serve. I would much sooner have the resolution simply say that the County of Brant does not object to the Board of Health pursuing amalgamation with Haldimand, Norfolk, and Brant. Don't get into poking the city. That's unnecessary. The city hasn't even passed that resolution yet. And I don't, and I may be wrong, but I don't think they will. It's not something that's going to go anywhere. If you want to get into a fight with the city, there are all kinds of things to fight about. This isn't one of them. Let the health unit do what the health unit does and look out for the public health of the area. The board is capable of making decisions. It's not up to us. We're ultra vires to the health unit. Quit fighting with the city. Don't worry about what McCreary is doing. Don't worry about what the city does. Worry about what the health unit does. Just give the support to the health unit without having to condemn anybody else. So if the resolution is modified, and I'll make an amendment, that the last part of the resolution be stricken, and that simply say that the County of Brant support the position of the Brant County Health Unit, then I'm in full support. But if you want to start poking the city, I'm not in support of that. And it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't have to be.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, is there an amendment on the floor there?
And speaking to the amendment, all that simply does is remove the conflict or the apparent perceived or whatever you call it, conflict with the city focuses on the issue of amalgamation. That's where we should be focusing on, not McCreary's resolution or whatever. If I hadn't read the paper, I wouldn't even know about it. And the health unit is quite capable of looking after its own affairs, even though you may have one member that is in opposition to what the board wants to do.
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear about Robert's amendment, do you stop it after? Do you put a full stop after the end of health unit? Because we have to say the position on what? Yeah, and well, let me read it then. It says the County of Brant support the position of the Brant County Health Unit. Yeah, we have to say position on what? But the issue is not about amalgamation. I mean, the issue is, no, the Brant County Health Unit passed a motion to say that they do not agree with amalgamating the health unit. And that's what we're agreeing. If that's what we're agreeing, that's fine. If we're agreeing with their position on not embedding the health unit within the city of Brant, I've no problem. Yeah. Apologies, Mr. Chair, but I think we do need to be clear. If I can support the idea of saying we support the position of Brant County Health Unit, but it has to be on something. And the something that we're supporting is their motion that says they do not affirm, they do not support the embedding of the health unit within the city of Brantford. That's what we support. If that's what Councillor James is suggesting, I'm good with it.
It's not what I'm suggesting at all. That's what I'm opposed to. What I'm suggesting is that Brant County Health Unit is the body responsible for looking at amalgamations, and they're doing so accordingly. It's not up to the county to disagree with the city's position or support a Brant County Board of Health position, because that's up to them. We simply support, we're not opposed to what they're doing. If the resolution should actually go without saying, but I don't want to put in a resolution that we are contrary to what the city's doing. If the health unit wants to do that, that's fine. But I don't want to get into a battle with the city, it's just not going to go well, and we don't need to do that. And I think Councillor Bell understands what I'm saying, and we may be quibbling on the same issue, but don't condemn the city for what the city wants to do. It's not up to us to run their city. It's up to us to run the County of Brant, and it's up to us, up to the Brant County Health Unit to run the Brant County Health Unit. And this resolution combines everything, and it need not be. Similar to the Haldimand Norfolk resolution, where the the County of Norfolk supported the amalgamation talks, or that's the resolution that we need to do. It doesn't talk about the city. It doesn't talk about the health unit's position. It talks about that they are supportive of moving forward with the talks on amalgamation.
And I'm telling everybody else to talk into the mics, and I'm not even. Wow.
That specifically is my move to amend.
Okay. So just to repeat with the mic on, the County of Brant Council supports the position of the Brant County Health Unit on amalgamation. Councillor Chambers. Okay, and the seconder is okay with that. Mayor Bailey, you wanted to say something?
Well, through the chair, just to Councillor Chambers, I think we're comparing Councillor Dan to the city. Two of the city representatives voted with us to be the 9. So it's not the city we're talking about. The city has 3 representatives. 2 of the representatives voted with us to become the 9-1. So it truly is, Dan. It's not the city. Because if we take the 3 members of the city, the majority of the city voted with us.
Right.
So it really is a funny situation of someone who didn't get their own way. So I don't call it bullying, and I don't think we're centering out Dan. I'm just suggesting that we shouldn't keep saying the city, because most of the city voted with us.
And I think that, if I may, Councillors, I think that's part of the rationale of you wanting to pull that part out.
Just to be clear, the city voted 9-1 to ask staff to pursue looking at embedding the health unit into the city. That's when I say we don't want to get into that business. That's the position of the committee of the whole, or whatever they call themselves, which is going to council to be voted on, which has not been voted on. So that's what I mean. We don't want to get into the city's business. Let them deal with that. And that's why I think, as the mayor suggests, the mayor of the city and one other city representative on the health unit were not in favor of that at the health unit. So I don't think it's going to pass. So why ruffle the feathers at this point by putting a resolution forward to antagonize the city, which it will. That's why I support the amendment, and I would ask that you call the question.
Final word, Councillor Bell.
I don't accept it as a friendly amendment.
Okay. So.
And if I may say why, the motion at the Brant County Health Unit was supported almost unanimously. But whilst there are 3 members of the City Council who sit on the health unit, 2 of them voted also to support considering embedding. So it is in conflict with their own code of conduct. But the more important point is, we are equal partners in many respects in funding the health unit. And we need to give a positive statement that we do not wish to be embedded in the city administration. We do not wish to have the health unit embedded in the city administration. So there are 2 issues. One is, yes, we support a merger. And by the way, the city motion also said they don't support the merger. So we have to, we could say something else. We could say we support the amalgamation and we do not support embedding. That, and I could go along with that. But that's different from what Councillor Chambers is saying. So I do not accept his amendment as a friendly amendment, and we should vote on it. Well,
So I don't think it was friendly. It was just an amendment that's being made, and the amendment has been seconded. So no further questions on the amendment. We're going to vote on the amendment, which is the County of Brant Council support the position of the Brant County Health Unit on amalgamation. Is the amendment. All those in favor? What do we got? 7. Okay. Opposed? Okay. So the amendment is carried. So now we're going to vote on the motion as amended. That the Brant County Council support the position of the Brant County Health Unit on amalgamation. Everybody's good? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, good conversation. Okay. Anybody, anything for other business? I'm sorry, Councilor Garneau?
Thank
I
you,
did
Mr.
not come
Chair.
back to you, my apologies.
No, that's all right. I think the discussion got us where we needed to be. I missed the opportunity at the beginning of the meeting before we go on camera just to declare a conflict on 13-1. The members of that bargaining unit are also my workforce.
Okay. Nothing else on their other business. Motion to move in camera. Councilor Garneau, Councilor Oakley, all in favor? Opposed? We're going to go 2 minutes here, folks. Okay, we are back in open session now. On to, there's nothing else I can see on the agenda. So our next meeting is June the 18th, 2024. Move for adjourn. Councillor Oakley.